Hello, and welcome back to Shelf Talks, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of female founders bringing their product-based businesses to retail shelves. I'm your host, Roberta, and today I'm joined by purpose-driven entrepreneur Valerie Emanuel, co-founder of RIF Care, a wellness-forward feminine care brand built around sustainability, transparency, and self-care. Valerie's journey with her co-founder is one of vision and advocacy, and I'm really excited to hear how she and her co-founder are reshaping the retail shelves, building community, and really empowering kind of a new generation of conscious consumers. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. I'm excited to hear your story, so let's just dive in. So before RIF Care came to life, what did your world look like?
My gosh. I've always been working. I always like to say that I've been working since I was 3 years old because I really have. I started as a model, so I got discovered super early. And I did commercials for like Corn Nuts, and I was on different TV shows and did all types of random stuff like Reading Rainbow, Kids Say the Darndest Thing, little modeling jobs here and there. And then when I was in my mid-20s, right after I had my daughter, I think I was 26, I started a talent agency called Role Models Management. So I got to run that for a few years. And through running that, I got to work with a lot of startup brands. So, CPG brands in the health and wellness space. I also feel like this was a time where there was just a lot of VC funding. If you don't know what that is, it's venture capital funding into these brands. Think like Allbirds, Seed, who are raising like $10, $50 million. And so they had these budgets to work on affiliate programs and did cool campaigns. And since we were a purpose-driven talent agency who had influencers, we were often connecting them. So, they had budgets to spend and we got to produce photo shoots for them. And I just thought they're working with these CPG brands that maybe one day I would have my own CPG brand. So that was, kind of before RIF. And then I went and had like a little seasonal job at the Goop store in Brentwood while I had my talent agency. And everyone's like, you're literally running like $1 million talent agency. Why are you working at this store in Brentwood? And I was like, I think I want to start my own brand. And I just need to like be around the Goop team. And I got to meet Gwyneth multiple times and like all these different founders who would all come into the store because it was the most popular store. And I just learned so much. I got to do personal shopping for people. I really studied product at that time and like packaging and what people were asking for. So that was what I did for 4 months. And then after that, I started RIF. And this was all happening around 2020. So it was like looking like a very bleak time to start a business, but I just felt like, if there was a need for something and a right to exist, then I should be the one to do it.
Yeah, that's so smart, kind of going in and getting educated before you even kind of push the trigger on starting something on your own within a new space.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who are like, I'm going to quit my engineering job and start a perfume company. And I was like, why don't you go work for a perfume company so that you don't lose your income and then start a perfume company? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Take that time to really learn and understand.
Yeah, on someone else's dime also.
Right. So when you were at Goop, did you already know what you wanted to do when it came to starting that CPG, or was that a time as well of you exploring to understand what avenue you wanted to go down?
Oh, I knew I wanted to do CPG, but I had no idea I wanted to do period care. So RIF Care started off actually as like a sexual wellness company. I thought I wanted to do something in another space. I thought I wanted to do products for pain during sex because after I had my daughter, that was a big issue that I had. I just had all types of vagina problems, right? I was like, always having yeast infections for a little bit. And then I had a lot of pain. And then I had an IUD that ended up puncturing my uterus. So like I knew I wanted to do something in women's health. I had really bad hormone health issues. So I didn't know if it was going to be supplements, which I still think supplements is a huge opportunity for myself and RIF. I didn't know if I wanted to do lube. So I just started making this like CBD lubricant and I put it on eBay and every day I would like sell a bottle. It had no brand.
What?
It had nothing on it. There's no brand. I just like started selling it. And then I was like, okay, I really want to start RIF. I realized I wanted to start period products, but every manufacturer I went to try to make products with hemp, because our product we launched 3 years ago, we're the first brand to make period care with hemp fiber. Everyone was like, no, that's not possible. And you might be getting these messages also like the packaging you want to make is not possible or the product or whatever, but there's always someone to say yes. This person might be in Vietnam. This person might be in Canada. You don't know. But for the first year when I heard no, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep selling the CBD oil-based lubricant online, like just on eBay, because I don't want to start a website. Don't want to do any of that. But I really, in the future, maybe I'll start it. And then I saw that there were some other startups who were trying to do hemp-based feminine care. And anyway, I was like talking to this guy at the time, and he just happened to be an investor. And I kind of told him about my idea. And I was like, this is something I really want to do. And he was like, this is fantastic. Like, how can I back you? And he ended up like backing the company.
Oh, wow.
Giving our first investment. So I got to work on it, but it didn't start like we very much soft launched for a year before we launched. So we had the oil and it was for sale while we were making the period products just to bring in some income. And I'm so happy I did that. And I didn't wait for the opportunity to be perfect. I was like, while we make money in the meanwhile, which is like $200 a week or whatever we were bringing in, very small amount, we can still start the brand. We can still do pre-sales. We did Kickstarter. I didn't want to wait to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars or have the product to start the company.
Yeah, that's so smart and kind of ideal that you met somebody that was able to help early invest to really get you started and find the right manufacturer. So with that, a whole year of calling people and them saying no, how did you find the right manufacturer?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there are other search engines besides Google, just so you know. And now there's ChatGPT. There was no AI in like 2021, but 2021 is when I started to ideate the brand. We launched in 2022, but I was like, okay, look, I'm probably not going to find my manufacturer in South America. I'm probably not going to find them in Latin America. I'm probably going to have to find them in Asia. So I was like, okay, what's the Asian search engine? And I went there and I started to look for toilet paper manufacturers. And then I started to look for pad manufacturers. And so I found someone who could make the non-woven material that I needed. And then I found someone who could use that material and put it through their machine and the weight would actually work. So I was like, if I could just connect these two people, I could make this product. And there was there was two other companies, one that raised like $1 million, one that raised like $5 million, another one that raised a few $100,000, and they were all working on this thing. And none of them had got it. And I literally had $8,000 and like, we got it. We had our first few hundred samples and we were sending them to people to try. And I was like, I cannot believe we're going to be first to market. But it's, like I think outside the box, and I don't know if this is like a neurodivergent thing or whatever, but I always know I was never good in school. I never got good grades, even though I was like high IQ and gifted and all that stuff. But I would like do a science project or do a writing project and win awards. And I was like, okay, this is a strong suit of mine. And if I just keep, people say you should go one way and I always go the other way. And it's not because I'm trying to be, like anti-establishment or whatever. I see things that other people can't see. So that was like the whole manufacturing process. And mind you, this person is telling me I have to pay them $100,000, never seen their face before, but just like trusting them and connecting all these dots and like up at 4 a.m. and not sleeping for days on end. Cause I'm like trying to connect people and trying to get to market. And I'm like, if I could get the product in my hand, then maybe we could raise more money and blah, blah, blah. And so before the Kickstarter, when we started the Kickstarter, I had a $50,000 goal and no product. There was people I didn't know who were donating like $500, $1,000, $1,500. And I started to get super nervous because I was like, I don't have a product. And these people are like pre-ordering product and I don't have it, but I just had so much faith. And I didn't want to be like that girl who said that she had like a blood company and she had nothing. Like I knew that I could figure it out, But at the same time, I was starting to feel like her. And then I think we ran the Kickstarter for like 6 weeks. 3 weeks in, we had samples. It was so quick. I think also God like intervened in some way, but I would also say that me and my co-founder, Rebecca, she wasn't the co-founder at the time. Like if people had met us in person, they know we're like extremely awkward and whatever. But it's like a way that we work that like we don't need anybody to give us a go. We'll just do it.
Oh my gosh. So how did you convince people without even having a product, number one, when you were on Kickstarter, that this is a tangible product and it made sense to add into their routine?
I would say marketing is very important. And luckily I was really good at marketing. Like I told you, I'd worked with these huge startups that would give me $100,000 budgets to help them work on all these different, we need all these creators. We have $100,000 and I would get to get really creative and help them work on this campaign or get to cast big campaigns for them. So I knew what it looked like to produce something good. And then I come from the entertainment industry. So I produced a very super pro video and the video looked like a commercial. But like, if I would have just done that with my phone or like, it wouldn't have worked. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't raise 50, you couldn't have strangers give you $1,000.
Right.
A regular video. And so when I see founders, I'm like, look, I don't care if you have to drive Uber. I don't care if you have to babysit or walk dogs. Don't sell ass. But like do everything you can to get the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like do everything you can in your power to get the money so that you can produce photo shoots and do all this stuff in your legal power. Because I swear to God, people just don't know and they get stuck and they're like, I just don't have it, so I'm not going to do it. And I've seen so many founders give up because they just don't have enough money to do it. And I'm like, bro, you just don't think outside the box enough. I don't know if it's because my parents are like immigrants, but there's never a I don't have it. It's just a matter of like, how can I get it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely reflective too of you searching the internet for the States and South America and saying, okay, I can't find a manufacturer here. What else can I do?
Yeah.
So finding your manufacturer, you never went there. You never saw them. This was all just based on faith and you getting your finalized sample and paying them in advance.
Yeah. And what I realized too, I think this is good when you're dealing with co-manufacturers, is that their communication is really good. Because I mean, even if someone's a legit company, if they're not communicating well, you have to think about how that affects your lead times and how that affects shipping times and how that affects your needs as an entrepreneur. Like you might need to change something really quickly. And if someone takes 3 weeks to get back to your email, you know, if you're eventually at Walmart or something, and 3 weeks is like hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines and fees.
Right.
So
yeah.
Also this manufacturer just answered us really quickly. I liked their communication. They were bothering us with communication. They were like calling us 10 times a day. Like, we have a deadline, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I like them. They're going to keep me on my toes. I like it.
Yeah. So then you get your final product and you deliver to your Kickstarter community. What was early feedback? What were people saying about the product?
Yeah. So the first feedback we actually got was from the samples, and the sample feedback was really positive. I'm someone who has a very heavy period. And so I was trying it for myself and I was doing different things. Like I was telling my friends, I was like, wear it on a walk, wear it to the gym, wear it, you know what I mean? Like all over the place. And then, oh, you're going to a humid climate, please bring some of these pads with you. I was like, I had no money for this, but my friend was like in Bali and I was like, please take this. I'll ship this product to you so you can try it in Bali. Like I need to know how it works everywhere.
Yeah.
This was like 100 pads and I think I gave them to like 20 people and then I had some for myself. So the first feedback was really positive. And then of course, as an entrepreneur, you get negative feedback as well, but that helps you to make your product better. It helps to iterate it. So even the first boxes of product that we ordered versus the second, it's like we changed the perforated top sheets. And this new product, we're putting an extra layer of cotton. So it's even more absorbent for the super and the overnight. And then the tampons, we just got more absorbent tampons because the ones we have are like on the low end of regular and the low end of super. For some people, they work fabulously. But if half of women have heavy periods and half have regular periods, then like maybe 75% of your customers will be happy and like 15% will feel fine or like 10% will feel fine. And then there'll be 5% who are like, this doesn't work with me. But it's like, girl, you bleed like you've just been shot every month. Like there's nothing I can do to help you. But at the same time, like, even though I can't help every single person, I try. And this was also the thing because like my sister at the time, she just had gastric sleeve. But she was like, very overweight and she has like a big bum. And she was like, the pads work for me. And then there was someone who was like saying that they were, 200 pounds overweight approximately, and the pads didn't work for them. And I'm like, I cannot iterate the product just for like this very specific group of people. If it works for someone who's a size 24, then like to me, that works for most people. So you also have to realize like you can't change for every single review, but like typically we'll have, 50 to 70% of our customers return, just depending month by month. We're always checking these numbers. And that's really good. And the fact that we have less than a 1% return rate, like, is also really good. So that has to be good enough. And the people who love it, sometimes they don't leave reviews. And the people who use it once and they don't like it, they're the people who leave reviews. And I'm like, this wasn't the other like 20,000 customers. This was like these 2 people, but we still have to take all of the feedback and be considerate of it.
Yeah. How do you measure that in understanding like how much to change versus not based on kind of the feedback, especially in those early days?
Yeah. I mean, I think if somebody says something that I was already thinking and that other people have said before, like if you get consistent messages, I think that's it. Like, for example, we have period underwear. They're very highly rated. People love them, but it's always every once in a while we're like, can you make another color? Can you make another color? So eventually we will make another color, but that has to do with quantities. And then do we want to like produce all this stuff and it costs a lot of money? So things like that, it's like that's something that we can easily do. And then with the absorbency, if we have 100 reviews and 10% of the reviews say they could be more absorbent, that's enough for me to be like, we're adding an extra layer. We're making the pads more maxy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's like, if it's 10% or more, it's something to consider. And sometimes it could be 1 out of 100 people that just make a comment. Like, for example, our period underwear also have a piece of mesh on the side of them. It makes them super stretchy and it makes it so that like you never feel like you're being constricted during your period. but some people weren't reading the wash instructions. And so their period underwear were like tearing. And I was like, what did you do? And they told me what they did. And I was like, you clearly didn't read the instructions. So we changed it to a slightly more thick nylon, but then we also made the instructions bigger. We put the instructions in 3 different places.
That's smart.
So like those are things that are easy for us to iterate. And like, I love that feedback because yes, I know for myself, I don't read instructions at all. I just open things and I use them.
Same.
So yeah.
That's smart though. Like, how do we just make it bigger so that people really see it when they're trying it? So you had your samples, you delivered them, got some great feedback, and made some changes where you felt were necessary, and then you get to a point in which you ship out to real consumers, right? So with that, did you deliver on time, and what were those customer feedbacks at that point?
Yeah, so we said the product would be available spring, summer, and we ended up launching in June. We got the first product in May because I was like, I want to ship my pre-orders before everything else. So can you just drop ship things to my apartment building? And for some reason that week I didn't have a car. So we had these like huge boxes and I was taking them and putting them on my head and like walking back and forth to my apartment with 12 different like 20 to 25 pound boxes. I was like, thank God I go to Pilates. But I'm like walking with them. And then the next month our stuff came in and we had no idea about customs. I would say that you need to give yourself an extra 3 weeks from the delivery date to deal with customs. Have a broker, like trucking company. We didn't have any of that. We really didn't know what to do. And even this last order that we got in, like, it's not self-explanatory. It's not easy for someone like me who bypasses every single instruction and just runs into walls and hope that one is actually just like, made out of sugar glass or whatever.
Right.
Oh my God, like, it was so difficult for me. So anyway, my co-founder, Rebecca, she's the COO and she handles operations and she's like a scientist. So she's, much better at these things than me. She actually reads details, but it's still really difficult. So get a good broker.
Yeah. So what was that feeling once you got your final product that you were able to deliver to your consumers, to people that were interested and already had signed up?
Oh my God, I can't even explain. It was such a relief. So we actually had a launch party too, a few weeks before we had the actual product in hand. And it was kind of upsetting because we didn't have enough product to ship. So we had influencers with like some millions, hundreds of thousands of followers come to the party and they were posting about it. And we also didn't have like our email workflow set up correctly. We didn't have all this stuff set up to capture like abandoned carts. So it was like, oh, shipping in a few weeks, but we didn't have an exact date. So when we actually launched, I was so excited because that was such a big disappointment that we couldn't meet, the media that we had that one day with like the actual launch date. So I was like really upset with myself for that. But looking back in hindsight, I'm like, it helped us so much with a successful launch into a retailer that we had a few weeks later. So once the product got here in June, we launched into Erewhon, which is a grocery store in Los Angeles, in July. So
What?
It was like, yeah. So it ended up working out perfectly because all of our influencers were LA based. Their audiences were super Erewhon fans and customers. So when we launched, it was like we immediately got to number 1.
Wow. How did you even get into Erewhon, especially just prior to you even getting like your first round of products? What did that experience look like?
Oh my gosh. So we actually got into Erewhon before we launched. And there was a few other retailers that we got into before we launched also. I literally had like samples in a plastic like Ziploc bag. And then we had printed out boxes. We were like, the product's not here yet. But it just took a few employees trying the product and loving the product to be like, we want to bring this in. But we like put the product on shelves, we took pictures of it, and we still do this. We call it like manifesting, but it's also like we want to show people how it would look on shelf because I do think we have a killer brand, killer packaging. Like if you love brand and you're one of those people who's like, I buy this because it's prettier and like I like the story's mission, like that's all RIF. So I ended up just randomly meeting the owner of Erewhon's wife at a trade show. And I thought her outfit was cute and like, I'm a Malibu mom and she's a Malibu mom. And like, we kind of connected for a minute and she, first I thought she was like kind of cold, but she was actually just like really evaluating me and my broker and all this stuff. And then like literally, and then we did the vendor online submission. You still have to submit and go through a proper thing. But I think it was that face to face, which is why now we're doing more trade shows and trying to fly places and meet buyers. Because I always say me and my co-founder, like we're fantastic in person, even though we are like, our personalities are really big. It's memorable to have a big personality with no filter. So I just think that was it. I think it was just like a personal mom to mom, woman to woman thing. And then we had an approval before we had a product. I was still shocked, but yeah, I think that really helped our brand in the beginning.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you went into the store with just samples and handing them to employees, which always are, as well can be your first kind of influencers. That's really smart. And then what trade show did you go to?
Expo West. If you have not been to Expo West, it happens in Anaheim every single year, whether you're a retailer or a brand. It is one of the biggest ones. I also say that my daughter's an Expo baby because I met her dad there like, I don't know, I guess 12 years ago or something. And like, I totally was pregnant before the end of the year. But anyways, so grateful for Expo West. It's changed my life for the better.
In many ways, in many ways.
Right. I've got like an amazing, beautiful child because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Expo West is just, it's one of the most amazing trade shows. And, you know, I've exhibited there. I've walked the floor. I've come as press. I've come as an influencer. It's a great place to get your foot in the door if you want to be in CPG.
Yeah. And I think you're right. There's been a lot of movement post COVID of kind of, things through email and maybe virtual, but the face to face is really the great opportunity for people to really not only know about your brand, but also feel connected to you as a person and the founder of the brand.
Yeah. Face to face and email is like literally sucks. I feel like such a loser when I'm doing a meeting on like, I could just fly to Texas. I should just fly to Louisiana. I will fly to New York. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm just like showing up and it's actually making a difference. Like I know that this can be something that's really expensive, but like I found someone in my family who works at Marriott and I've got my like little Marriott friends and family discount. And I'm just like, wherever I need to show up, I need to go to Mexico, Canada, wherever. I'm just like going. So if you can meet face to face, even if you have to take a side job as an Uber driver, like I swear to God, go to these trade shows, meet people, pop up, because things happen when you meet face to face. It just changes everything. Think about how many submissions these retailers get, right? And they meet you in person. You're dressed nice. You smell good. You give them product. They like the product, or their son or daughter likes the product or has heard of your product before. And like they've got a personal connection with you that the other 1,000 submissions that just emailed them with friggin' whatever HubSpot like don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. That's a really good point too. I'm on the buying side, and I can admit, like for post-COVID, we do a lot of virtual conversations, pitches. And so it's really smart. I think what you're saying is like, even if, the buyer says, let's set up a call, maybe there's opportunity for you to turn around and say, hey, can I come and visit? Can I actually do my pitch in person and start to have that engagement versus a virtual conversation? So did you always think about going into retail with the brand, especially since it was kind of pre-designed even before you got final product?
Yeah. And we actually made our packaging to be retail friendly. Like when we first had our mock-ups, we'd go into every single grocery store. Even if I was in the 99-cent store, I would just put the box on the shelf and be like, how does it stand out? Like that was really important to me. And I think this is something that brands should do more. Like if you want to be in retail, it's like kind of awkward because it's crowded and there's like people who work there, but just like put your product on the shelf and see how it looks. Also, you have to remember most sales are still done in person. And then with something with period products, I think it's such a sensitive product. And I started to realize lately that women are actually afraid to buy things like tampons and pads online. It's still a sore spot for them. So even though like half our business is online, we meet our customers in stores, and even a lot of our online customers converted because they saw us on a store shelf. So I think it's really important. I think when we talk about the future and like different partnerships we want to do, or, just the growth of the company, like my goal is to be in 10,000 retailers. You know what I mean? Like I want you to see the brand just like you see Honey Pot or Lola or Tampax or whatever. And it's a household brand, and you can't be a household brand if you're not accessible by every household.
Yeah. Yeah. Factual. So once you were on the retail shelves, what did that look like? Was there anything that once your product was on shelf, you were like, oh, wow, I didn't even know this was a thing when it comes to being in retail?
Oh my God, slotting fees? You don't know about slotting fees. So when you get into stores, sometimes you have to pay like $1,400 per product to get on the shelf. And then distribution, nobody tells you about distribution. It's like you're in this big pool of brands. And unless you're making $5 million, the distributor, who's the person who buys your product and then sells it to the stores, doesn't really give a about you. They don't. I'm just going to be real. Like you're not making enough money for them. And I remember at the time also, like after starting the brand, I was like in a relationship with this guy who had a pretty big jerky company. And he was like, until we made $5 million, they did not listen to us. He's like, you need to get into like a startup program or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, maybe that was the only purpose of that relationship, because I immediately was like, we need to go into Unify up next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just really, my God, that was so, so important for us to get into the Up Next program and like also being women owned help. So getting the certifications, because the diverse certifications will help you get into stores. I mean, I know that there's a lot to be said about DEI and what's happening right now, but buyers are still interested in diversifying their shelves because we have a very diverse community. Like I'm a Black founder, I'm a Latina founder. And so I know that like if my girls know that I personally own the brand and it's at CVS, maybe they would make that extra block trip to go and buy the product. Because I do. I shop with my dollar. I put my money where my mouth is. I'm willing to pay $2 more for something if it's high quality. I was telling my friend earlier that like Nixie sparkling water has a picture of the founder on it. And I looked her up and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's $3 more than the regular sparkling water. I've never met this woman. Love supporting her. I don't care that it's $3 more. I think it tastes better and it's owned by a woman. It's not owned by Pepsi yet. I mean, but I'm going to support her.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel more connected and you want to support kind of that female founder.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like her strategy of being on shelf was, having her name on the product and her face on the product. And so even the first iteration of the packaging didn't have us on it. But I'm like, me and my co-founder do own 95% of the company on paper. We should be on the packaging. Like, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that too, because even when I'm shopping, like that's just a connection point. I feel like when you're picking up product and trying to decide, especially because there's so many options on shelf, when you see something like that and maybe there's even a story attached, it definitely makes you lean in, to even just from a trial perspective.
Totally.
Yeah. So speaking of ownership, at some point in 2023, I would imagine, because the show came out in 24, you were on season 1 of Side Hustlers with those power investors, Emma Grede and Ashley Graham. How did that even happen?
Yeah. So that TV show came very organically. I got a phone call one day and I was in Atlanta doing Techstars. My co-founder was back in LA because she had just found out that she was pregnant with Dominic, my amazing nephew. And we got a phone call and I answered my phone for some reason. I typically don't answer my phone, but I did because it didn't say spam. And it was like, hey, someone has mentioned your brand and we would love to have you be on the show. But you have to go through this round of casting. Nothing's guaranteed. And I think we had like 8 phone calls, right? Like between phone calls and Zoom interviews. And then we found out that we were going to be pitching to them. So we did the first, like the pilot episode, the pitch. And then from there we were picked. But I think there was a thread all along where like me and my co-founder knew with everything, like we prayed so hard about it. And like my intuition and like the spirit really told me that we were meant to be on that show. So it was amazing. Like I really leaned in and I listened to it. And for whatever reason, like I said, I don't pick up phone calls, don't listen to voicemails.
Oh my gosh.
No, don't. I just delete them. If you send me a voicemail,
What?
you might as well go to, no, don't believe in voicemail. Don't believe in it at all.
You just delete it. You don't even listen.
I don't, especially if it's from my daughter's school. I'm like, I live close. Like I don't hear kids screaming and running. So no one's hurt. I don't need to listen to this. I don't care. Sue me. Yeah. So anyways, for whatever reason, so we ended up getting on the show. And that was such a life-changing moment for us. Like, and I think it changed our life in a different way than I thought it would. Like the show was not like Shark Tank, right? But I think through the show, me and my co-founder, you get to this point in your founder journey where you're kind of like at the end of your rope, right? Because like we're making sales, but we're broke and we're trying to raise money and people are saying no, but then we're also getting investor outreach so people are interested. And we just like, we'd had some wins, but it was still like, it felt like we were climbing upside down, uphill. Like, honestly, it was so hard. And then when we got the show, I just realized this is really an opportunity for us to show who we are as founders. We did get, hundreds of new customers from the show, which was really exciting. But I also think the stamp of approval from someone like Hello Sunshine, Reese Witherspoon, and Ashley Graham really changes things. We grew by like, a few thousand followers. I think people are always commenting on my TikTok or our TikTok, or I was on TikTok live the other day. Oh my God, I found you because I watched the show. So I think also women who want to be entrepreneurs definitely watch the show and they were really inspired by it. So that was my number one thing is I was like, our journey, we filmed the show for 8 weeks, every single day, 10 hours a day.
Oh,
and
wow.
You got to see us for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? But we worked so hard. We worked tirelessly to do all the projects. There were so many projects you didn't see. There were so many days you didn't see. There's a scene where we did a photo shoot and you see 10 minutes of it, but that was like an 11-hour day.
Oh, wow.
So there's just a lot.
Yeah. What was your biggest takeaway from that? What was the biggest learning from being on that show and being around some people that really had experience within the space?
Yeah, so before the show, we'd never launched an official campaign before. And this year, we actually launched our first campaign. But I think like when you're just trying to stay alive, you're not thinking of these like big creative ideas. And the show forced us to think of big creative ideas, right? So I think it forced us to get creative in that way. It also forced us to put everything down on paper. I think also Ally came in, they're a bank. And we did a lot of financial literacy courses. There was one episode that you saw where we're going around and people start crying and whatnot. And that was such an intense day. Like me and my co-founder were both first gen. Parents are immigrants, grew up extremely poor in the same neighborhood. And so for us, that was a really transformative day. Like there was things that I'd never talked about my financial stress and like everything that happened in my family and also her. At one point I was like homeless and had to live with my co-founder when I was a teenager. So there was like a lot that came up. And so I think we bonded through it.
Yeah.
And also we had to put it all out on the table. We weren't sure what was going to make it to TV or not, but like we talked about our financial trauma and like growing up in poverty and food stamps or whatever, like on TV.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. And I think especially as a founder, like people just assume I'm rich. People assume that the company's making millions of dollars and I live in this mansion and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I have $50 a month state health insurance. Like it is so funny. Like every single dollar that we make, I put it back into the company. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, probably seeing you on TV and then seeing you on social, people think like, oh, they must be doing well, especially, getting into all those retailers. But yeah, understood.
Yeah.
You're still in the process of really building your brand, right?
Exactly. And doing well versus like making millions of dollars is so different. It's like our company actually like we do perform well in most of our retailers. We have Amazon and we have our website and like, yeah, we make sales, but it's not like we can pay ourselves like $20,000 a month or something,
Right.
Like, just for full transparency. It's like me and my co-founder have never paid ourselves more than $3,000 a month at this point and 3 years. And that might shock people. And I'm like, thank God she has a husband and thank God I get child support. And like, thank God I'm also an influencer because I don't know many people who would stick around for that paycheck, but it's not about the paycheck for us. It's like, we really think this company should exist and that's why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. With that too. So just to back up, because it is hemp based. Number one, what made you think specifically that hemp was the right ingredient or component, I guess I should say, for this product? And then how do you leverage marketing with education? Because it is so different from, what we typically know to be in period care.
Yeah. So I started using hemp maybe like 10 years ago. My ex had, my daughter's dad, he had like a hemp-based product line where he had socks and thongs and bras and all this stuff. And I started wearing, his business went out of business. We had an entire guest house filled with hemp products. And so I was like giving it to all my friends. I started donating some of it and selling it on eBay, but I was like, this stuff is really good. Like hemp is really comfortable. So even before I started the oil, when I was making the CBD oil, I was using a reusable hemp menstrual pad. I didn't like that it didn't stay in place, but I used it for a few years and I was like, it is just so comfortable. So for me, it was really a performance and a comfort thing. And then also I'm someone who just has like really bad BO. And so I'd wear these hemp bras and like my underarms wouldn't stink. And that was just shocking to me.
Oh,
wow. I was like, oh my God. And then it's antimicrobial and antibacterial. So there was all these benefits of hemp that I was learning about over the years. And I just became such an advocate for it. So when I thought about using a non-woven, so the top sheet, I know there's other brands and they use hemp pulp or whatever. Ours is the top sheet. So the actual part that like touches your vagina is made out of hemp and it is so comfortable. It's absorbent. It makes you feel dry. So once I realized I could have all those qualities in a disposable product, I was like, that's it. We're using hemp. And then educating on it. Our brand has spearheaded and led the hemp education movement. There's us and then there's one brand who was like more of a CBD tampon coated company out of the UK. But we were really spreading the message about hemp fiber in a way that I'd never seen done before. There are some hemp clothing companies that do quite well. And then there's, CBD had a really big thing, but this is a completely new product, a completely new way that it's being used. We're the first people to ever launch this product and it's launching straight onto a shelf. So that was also like education at a store level, whether it was shelf talkers, talking to employees so they knew exactly why, like all those amazing benefits I just told you, we made sure every single employee knew. Also on our packaging, we make sure all that stuff is on the side of our packaging. So I think when it comes to education, We were also doing a lot of like funny videos and then some sit down educational videos. And the first 2 years of the business, it really was just like education about hormone health, sexual health, and then some about our product. Now we're doing even more education about the product because it is so important. Like your brand has to have a personality, but you also have to educate on why people should use your product. So it's like every other post is really a post about like the product benefits and like why we use hemp. And then we also educate on just women's health in general.
Yeah, that's good too in regards to what you were saying from an in-store perspective, because it's easy from an online to be able to educate and speak, but how do you talk about your product and the differentiation and the benefits when people are just walking by a shelf? So you're using shelf talkers. How does that work in regards to the associates being educated? Do you have a team that goes out? Do you go out to those retailers? What does that look like?
This is the team, baby. It's me. It's me. I'm the team. So yeah, I mean, we had brokers in the beginning and they were always doing store visits. So there's a new app. It's called SKU, SKYU. And you can hire people for like 20, $30 to go into a grocery store and hand out cards or check shelves or whatever. And I think that's a great resource. But, we have done a lot ourselves and we now have a new sales team and our previous sales team as well. It's like they're just on store level educating because the employees are actually your first customers and every store is different. Like in a Gelson's, the health and beauty department manager is not the same as Erewhon, where like you go into Erewhon because you want to talk to someone to lead you to a product. And in Gelson's, not necessarily. You might just be walking in, you don't even talk to anyone, you go and then you do a self-checkout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every store is different, but I think at every store, they need to try your product. Even if like I go into a store and there's a damaged product on shelf, I swap it or I buy it and I give it to the employees and I have a little 5-minute chat with them and I like put it in the employee room because maybe someone goes, oh, where are the pads one day? And you're like, they're over there. Oh, that one is my favorite brand. Like you want the employees to say that that one is their favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart. Love those points. So as you're kind of building, you're getting into more retailers, how are you managing manufacturing? So making sure that you have proper inventory to support the expansion that's happening.
Yeah. So that's way more Rebecca for sure. I mean, I kind of just like live my life based on vibes, but like at a certain point you have to live based on numbers. So that's Rebecca. She's like scientist and math and Excels and all that stuff. And I also like to look at trends. So we look at trends. There's so many places you can buy data, Nielsen IQ, spins, things like that. And then also just genuinely knowing our movement. So some of these retailers you can call and be like, oh, how many have you sold in the past 6 months? And genuinely know. And you're like, okay, well, I can gauge if like 5 of my stores have an average of like 2 to 4 velocity a week, then my average velocity is 3. And so if I'm in 1,000 stores, I'm going to need 3,000 boxes a week. You know what I mean? You can kind of do that math. And there are people you can hire to do forecasts for you. We haven't done that yet, but I think we've definitely been going based on just like sales data. And like I said, I kind of live on vibes. So like I'm not the correct person to ask the question all the time.
That's great though, between you and your co-founder, really identifying what your strengths are and then breaking it up to manage those specific things. So you mentioned trade shows, and you kind of doing more of those. What trade shows outside of Expo West have you been to, and which are the ones you feel are the most important?
I mean, I've gone to a lot for fun and then just like met people and networked, right? Like Expo West is great. They also have a new one that's called Newtopia that I think is great that we're going to. We're not exhibiting. I like to check them out first. And then if we like it, then we exhibit. So right now it's been, those two. We're going to Fancy Food this summer, which is more of a food trade show, but it's just great to be in New York and just kind of be in the scene and meet people face to face. And then also every distributor has their own trade show. So like if you are in distribution, go to distribution trade shows. It doesn't hurt, I mean, I think that they're actually cheaper than Expo West, but it's amazing. You meet all the buyers. It's like Expo West is kind of community and customers and buyers and services, but the trade shows for distribution are like only buyers. So it's just like a sales trade show, which is really interesting.
I didn't know about the trade show, the distributors having a trade show. So that's a new one. That's a good point.
Yeah. And they're expensive, but worth it.
So when you were on retail shelves in those early days, and even now, were there any challenges or maybe direction that you went in and then you found out that maybe, you needed to pivot based on the results?
Yeah. So, I mean, we actually have a pretty good velocity in retail. Like it's like 3 to 4 a week for our product. in most of our stores. There's some stores that are slower. And so we're trying to figure out if it's price, trying to figure out if it's employee engagement, trying to figure out if it's like shelf placement, shelf talkers, just the fact that the store's a slow moving store. But we updated our packaging. We had a lot of empty space. And if you look at our brand, it's very minimalistic. And I absolutely love that. But at the same time, we need to do more education on the box because there's sometimes where you won't talk to anyone. You'll just read the box. So we put more information about hemp. We had to have pictures of like the style of the pad that was put onto it. We also had to adjust like the absorbency drops that were on it. You know what I mean? So there were just different things that maybe people didn't necessarily say, but I realized from seeing other brands and from seeing people, I would like go into stores and do like a secret shopper. And I would see someone buying my brand and I would just sit there. I would just sit on the aisle for like 20 minutes and just watch people like go back and forth at like a Lazy Acres or a whatever, Lassen's or something, and just like see what people were doing on the shelf. And it was really interesting what they were reading. And I was like, we need to give them a little bit more to read while also staying minimal. Updating your packaging, I feel like is something super easy to do. Even if you have like 100,000 of something, you could hire some people to come to your house. You can hire your teenage cousin who's broke to come and repackage with you, which we have done.
What I love about what we were saying too is just the opportunity, like you're making those changes based on, feedback that you're seeing, like things that you're visually seeing in store because you are out there, which I think is important to get out there and really see your consumers, but not being afraid to change the core, not the core, because you're keeping the core of what your brand represents, but changing to adjust to really maximize, I guess I should say, your product. What has been the hardest part of running your business over the course now of these 5 years?
I think one of the hardest parts, just because we talked about this a little bit, like starting in the digital era, is reaching people, right? It's like, so on the buyer side and the wholesale side, there's the fact that you are emailing along with, I don't feel like my category is actually that competitive. Like when I think about it, there's like 20 people in my category, which is pretty good because with food and bev, there's thousands of beverage companies, but it is so much money to start a fem care company. It is so expensive, like minimum $250,000 just to start. So because the hurdle's a little bit higher, like there's not as much competition, but then it's like, you have to, email people. And sometimes we've even got approvals from stores and then not heard back from them. So like the communication is just hard. And then you're also competing in this space where like advertising is more expensive than ever. So since we've started, we've probably spent about $40,000 on advertising in the past 3 years, which I think is quite good. We just started spending money on advertising after raising some money, but it's like we're spending money and kind of seeing how it works. And if something doesn't work, luckily we can change it right now, but it's like experimenting with meta ads. And then we're experimenting now with Pinterest. Okay, that's one-to-one. So we might get new customers, but like long-term, does that make sense for us? And then, okay, do we want to move on and do Google ads if this is working or if it's not working? So you have to allocate where your budgets go and where your time goes. And this was also one of the reasons why we brought on a sales team, because we had a girl that we hired who's still on our team, but she was doing all the retail outreach. And we're like, we need someone who's like on the ground. We need someone who's at Kroger. We need someone who's at Whole Foods, at these places, because if it's not working, if that's growing us too slow, then we just need to go to something that's tried and true and that works. That will cost us $100,000 this year, but like it's guaranteed to work versus us trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Are you one, just because, hemp period care is different and unique in this space, are you on a race to have the brand in as many retailers as you can, just from a competitive standpoint, or how are you kind of thinking about growing when it comes to retail?
Hell yes. We have to. You know what I mean? Like now that there's other brands that have been launched too, I think it's really important for us to like reach these buyers. And also, if you're first in a category, you do have that opportunity, and there's always things changing every single day. Like there was another brand, I believe Lola, that got acquired by like a Amazon aggregate type of company. So if they're focusing on Amazon and getting off of retail shelves, then we need to fill those spaces. So it's like knowing when these things are happening, being really in tune with your category, knowing when the reviews are. And that's also why having a sales team helps, because the first 2 years, we're missing a lot of reviews, a lot of category reviews, because it was just our small team and working on everything. We were also shipping orders ourselves. It was just like a hot mess. It was working, but it was a hot mess. God. And then Yeah, I think that's really it, is like just knowing what your strengths are.
Yeah. And then from a pitch perspective in getting those retailers, what does that look like? Like what have you found is the most successful things that you communicate to buyers to get them to say yes?
We don't have a huge data story because we're a small company, you know what I mean? Like we're 3 years old, we're in about 300 retail doors. So like our data story is not strong. It's not like we were like, oh, we make $1 million of sales in UNFI. Like we're just not there yet.
Right.
So I think it's more telling them like how strong our brand is. And I think it's pretty obvious. Like there are a lot of really strong brands in our category, but I do think you can obviously see our personality, and that will help buyers to see the personality of the potential shopper, right? Like I am the RIF girl for sure. I go into, stores like New Seasons or Market of Choice, which are in the Pacific Northwest. We're in those stores and I look for new things. I stay in the store for 30 minutes. I talk to all the employees. Like I go home and I do my little red light therapy. And I try to convey to the buyers that like, that is our girl. I am that girl. On my personal TikTok, where I have like a little bit over 100,000 followers, like I talk about this stuff all day. I definitely leverage my personal following and the fact that I'm like, look how many customers comment that, they found us in X, Y, and Z store. So they're not only going to go into your store and buy RIF, like they're going to love your store in general. Like we could possibly bring you new customers because of the strength of what we're building. So I think just letting them know, because I think when people go up to retailers, like I see this desperate energy, and I've definitely had that before. And I'm like, it's like chasing a man or like texting a man when he wants nothing to do with you. Like I would rather lose a pinky. Like I don't want to be desperate. So it's like kind of telling them like how this could be a beneficial relationship.
Yeah.
And right. And like gauging where they are. Like you would be an idiot to miss out on this. And I think that's like what we've been trying to do before, but we didn't have that many opportunities to get in front of people. And now that we're going to more trade shows and stuff, it really is like, we are growing. Our sales are so strong. We outsell some of the oldest brands. We outsell our direct competitors. Like you would be foolish not to have RIF Care on shelves. Like this is where things are headed. And this is what women are really focused on. And then the data, biodegradable is growing by 30%. Period care is like being recognized by like Procter and Gamble and Kimberly, like all these type of companies have looked into RIF and are like, what you're doing is super cool. You know what I mean? Like they know it. They know that they can't make something like this. So yeah, we're like the hot new thing,
Yeah, I love that. And utilizing to your point, like if you don't have the big sales numbers, utilizing all of those other things that really make you relevant in the space, and even showing that consumers are already interested in shopping your store. So that's smart. Mm-hmm. So what is next for RIF Care? What's your vision for the future?
Oh my gosh. So we've teased actually a new style of period underwear. It's a few months ago now already. We teased it in January. And so I'm so excited because that's getting closer to being in fruition. We just raised money from two incredible angel investors, Natasha Oakley and Devin Bregman, who are the co-founders of Monday Swimwear and Monday Body, which is like a multi-million-dollar swimwear and activewear brand. And I mean, we just need to continue to grow in the US. I think we've been growing just like small month over month, but now that we've raised some money, we also got into another accelerator called Jumpstart Foundry, which is a healthcare accelerator. So now that we have more money, it's like, okay, we're off to the races. So expect to see us and new retailers. Definitely follow our newsletter. We're also doing this year something really exciting, which is like free gifts with purchase. We're partnering with all these really cool health and wellness brands, right? To like kind of bring our communities together. So definitely follow us if you want to see more of that. But yeah, new product launches, like I said, it'll be the period underwear. And from there, there's things I can't say, but you'll see.
Love that. So where can our listeners follow, support, and buy RIF Care?
You can follow us at RIF Care. The website is rifcare.com, rifcare.com. And then depending on where you are, we're in Mom's Organic Market on the East Coast. We're popping up in stores in New York. We're at Gelson's Los Angeles, Erewhon, New Seasons, Market of Choice in the Pacific Northwest. So head to our website and scroll to the bottom. You will see the retailers page, and that'll show you where you can find us.
Excellent. And I'll make sure I put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much, Val. It was really great meeting you and having conversation around building just a really powerful brand that I'm excited to see how it expands and grows.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.